Hello everyone, my name is Hubert and welcome to Teach Me channel. Today we'll be looking at GCSE biology, cancer. So as we talked before about cancer a little bit, cancer is a non-communicable disease and it is one of the leading causes of deaths worldwide, and it's a pretty nasty disease, guys, and therefore it kind of crops up in our syllabus, and it's quite important disease to discuss and understand because it's quite different. I think it's quite different to many other diseases such as those caused by pathogens as such. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, what is cancer? Cancer essentially is a disease that's caused by uncontrolled cell growth. But how does it happen? What's the lead up to cancer? What things need to come together for cancer to happen? Well, at first, we have a cell replication fault. So cells are dividing in our body all the time. And sometimes when the genetic code is being copied, there's a mistake. Something goes wrong, wrong genes get copied, gene mutations occur, and something is wrong with those cells that have been divided, that have been replicated. So there are two things that could happen at this point. Most commonly this happens. Most commonly the mistake in the cells is fixed or the cells are killed. And that gets rid of any problems. We can fix some of the smaller genetic mistakes if the cells are beyond any repair. Our body, our own immune system simply kills them off so they don't cause any more problem. Now, in some cases, unfortunately, that doesn't happen for many reasons. Sometimes the gene that's actually responsible for triggering these responses is the one that actually mutated, is the one that actually is faulty. In which case, we get uncontrolled cell growth. So the cells keep growing and dividing, and our body is not governing this. Normally, when cells divide and grow, this is strictly regulated by our body. In this case, it's not. The cells just keep growing. They get plenty of nutrients from our bloodstream, and they just keep dividing forever. And this leads to what's called tumor. It's a mass. A tumor essentially is a mass of cells that shouldn't be there, and those cells are dividing in an uncontrolled fashion, which is why these tumors essentially are bulges, because these cells are just going crazy. So now the two things can be happening with tumor. Tumor can be one of the two types. Tumor can be benign. Benign tumors, in most cases, that's what will actually happen. Benign tumors grow. They are growing in an uncontrolled fashion, but those tumors do not metastasize. Those tumors do not split up to form more tumors. They do not. The cells do not escape the tumor, and they don't travel elsewhere in our body, and they don't form new tumors. They don't form new tumors called secondary tumors. Benign tumors just are growing. They just grow. That's all. Now, these tumors normally are not considered dangerous. They are not considered cancerous, and they are not considered dangerous. In some cases, they can be problematic and are removed. In such cases, if they start physically blocking certain things. For example, if such a benign tumor physically blocks our airways, well, clearly it's gonna be a problem. So, in such cases, it can be removed. It can be problematic, but normally benign tumors are not dangerous, guys. Now, if a tumor happens to be malignant, if unfortunately the tumor is malignant, then what that means is that the tumor is growing just like the benign tumor is. However, that also means that the cells that make up the tumor, the uncontrolled cells that make up the tumor, have an ability to break away from the tumor. They can enter our bloodstream, and then they can travel to some other body part within our body and then start forming a new tumor there. And as far as you're concerned, that's what malignant tumor means. Now, there are some more things that go on in malignant tumors, that they don't just grow, but they also negatively impact our body by changing the signaling, by changing the messages that our cells in our body are sending, which is really what's the main problem with the cancer. But that's the main reason, that's the main difference. Benign tumors do not spread, whereas malignant tumors spread and have a capability to form secondary tumor, guys. So if we have a malignant tumor that starts spreading, that means essentially that the person has cancer, unfortunately. So that's essentially how cancers develop. Now, let's discuss the risk factors. So things that impact the risk of someone getting cancer. Those risk factors, as we previously discussed, they are not 100% measure. They will not determine that if somebody has that risk factor, they will definitely get cancer. That does not mean that. That risk factors merely increase the chance of a person getting cancer. So risk factors split into lifestyle factors. The most common risk factor for cancer is smoking, especially for lung cancers, but also for some other types such as cervical cancer and oral cancer. So smoking is a very big contributor. There is many things that smokes do in terms of damaging our lung cells, which then increases the likelihood of uncontrolled cell growth. Another risk factor that's perhaps less known, but is also crucial, is obesity. Obesity is the second most likely risk factor that people have. So obesity is very important. That's also a big risk factor for cancer. The next one up is UV exposure. So exposure to sun rays. That's especially important in skin cancers. That's a high risk factor for skin cancers. And finally, we also have viral infections. Some hepatitis viruses can increase the risk of cancer. And HPV virus, human papilloma virus, can also increase a risk of cervical cancer. So that happens because viruses damage cells, and also viruses can impact on the integrity of the cell DNA. They can impact on how DNA works in the cell. They can make it less stable and more prone to mutations and things as such. Therefore, certain viruses, not all, but certain viruses act as risk factors for cancer. And we also have genetic causes, the genetic risk factors, I mean. So these are genes that predispose somebody to cancer. They do not essentially cause it, they may not cause it directly, but they increase a risk of somebody having cancer. So, and one such mutation is BRCA mutation, the BRCA gene mutation, which is involved in breast cancer. So this is it for today, guys. That's how essentially cancer works. That's what cancer is. And I have to remind you that this is a horrible disease, and many people have this disease, unfortunately, and there is a lot being done in trying to research this disease. There are many new treatments being developed, and our survivability to cancer, it has improved immensely over past years. However, there is still a long way to go. There is no 100% perfect treatment. There is no so-called cure for cancer yet. And that's what scientists are working on, and hopefully there will be a cure for the cancer soon. But this is it for today, guys, and thank you very much for watching my videos. I really appreciate when you guys watch my videos. If you want to stay up to date on some biology and chemistry and physics, as well as maths videos in terms of GCSE, hit the subscribe button below, don't be shy. If you think this video helped you, give me a thumbs up. Thank you again for watching, and see you next time.